Hey everyone, it's Melissa Terzis, DC Real Estate Mama, and we are back with part 2 of the Condo Doc review procedure and everything that you want to do when you are buying a condo and you get a package of condo docs that you need to go through. So I'm going to pick up where we left off. We're going to head right into it. Now, what's in the rules and regulations? So these are also sometimes called the house rules. These aren't really recorded documents. They are things that the board is given like authority essentially to create more of a fine-tuned rules and regulation for the community, just day-to-day operational kind of thing. They're adopted by the board as needed. They can't contradict the bylaws. They can't strike anything out of the bylaws. That would require, again, a bylaws change in voting. All they can do is expand on anything that's already been covered and maybe go through it in a little bit more detail. So the rules are strictly for working within what's set forth by these. The boards, for example, let's say the bylaws allow rentals up to 50% of the community. Well, the rules and regulations may then specify that to maintain that 50%, they're going to do some sort of a waiting list or a lottery situation. And that way they can expand a little bit on what the bylaws have already said that there is allowable, but then not like contradicted or anything like that. So let's talk about now reserves. So there's no hard and fast rule for what should be in reserves. Reserves are basically the savings account for the condo association. It's what kind of money they have on hand to do what they need to do with, usually capital improvement projects. Sometimes there's a reserve study that's included with the documents. These are state mandated whether or not they're supposed to be done within a certain number of years or on a regular basis. A reserve study is sort of like a home inspection for a condo. It'll look at all the systems, the major components of the condo, and tell you whether or not they're going to need repair and how much money you should be setting aside for that repair come that given day. Absent of a reserve study, you're kind of going to need to use your judgment on what you think might make sense in terms of having in reserves. If a condo is a high-rise building, they've got a staff on site, multiple elevator shafts, a pool, a fitness center, and other amenities, and they only have a couple $1,000s in reserves, this would be a huge red flag. If anything were to break or need repair, it's likely that you're going to be facing a special assessment. Similarly, a small building maybe with 20 or 30 units, there's no on-site staff, there's very little amenities, very little that happens in the building that costs extra. If they had high reserves, that might be a bad sign as well. Even though it's good to have a lot of money in savings, you probably want to check to make sure there's not a ton of deferred maintenance happening at that building. Maybe the roof's caving in, maybe it's not, but you want to basically take a look at everything and try to figure out why do they have so much money saved and what's the plan and what are they doing with it. So let's talk about a little bit of a recent change here. Fannie Mae just passed some additional condo regulations for their underwriting standards. That is in a direct response to the Surfside condo building collapse in Miami. If a buyer is buying a condo and they're putting less than 10% down and they're doing a Fannie Mae loan, this is going to trigger what they call a full review of the condo association. That is because the mortgage underwriter is going to need to require that the condo is actually putting 10% of their income toward reserves. Reason being, their buyer's going in highly leveraged, right? Maybe they have 3 or 5% down. Money's already tight, obviously. They want to get this loan approved for their client, but they also don't want their client to be in a situation where they're underwater, right? So literally. So you don't want to find out that there's going to be some sort of repair because they're not putting enough money in the reserves, and thus there's now a special assessment, and that buyer is potentially in trouble and can't afford to pay. What happens when people can't afford to pay? They stop paying. And when they stop paying, eventually their property gets sold out from under them in a short sale or a foreclosure situation. All right, so let's talk a little bit about financials since that's related to reserves. You're going to get a copy of the balance sheet and the income statement with a budget and showing what the budget has, what's been spent on that year to date. Many of these items are going to be just regular contract items, and such as like cleaning, landscaping, management, maybe elevator is on a contract. There's also going to be a section called repairs and maintenance. This is where I would tell you want to take a pretty close look. How much how much is in repairs and maintenance? Because these are things that are essentially maybe budgeted for, but not necessarily counted on. So as an example, let's say your condo has an elevator and there's an elevator service contract, and the contract is, I don't know, $1,000 a month. That's a lot, but say it's $1,000 a month. But then you've got repairs and maintenance for $2,000 a month on the elevator. Well, why do they keep coming out? Why are they getting called out so much for elevator repairs and maintenance and things that fall outside the scope? That may be something that's indicative of an elevator that is not being well serviced, the company may not be taking good care of it, or the elevator may be on its last limb and about to break. These are things you've got to kind of pay attention to and see, all right, what am I looking for, and see if these documents can basically tell you a story. The other things that you'll see in the financial package are owner delinquencies. The bank's going to also want to take a look at this too. They want to make sure that there's not too many owners who are delinquent. If people are falling short of being able to pay their condo fees, then certain bills like the electric bill or the master policy insurance, those things may not get paid as a result. They may turn around and do a special assessment. Obviously, the owners that aren't paying certainly aren't going to pay a special assessment. Then you've got to worry about the owners who are left who are paying, footing more of the bill for everybody else. You just want to make sure that that doesn't happen, because then that ends up with people potentially walking away. And I've seen situations where condos have been condemned because they're not able to pay an electric bill or a water bill, and then they say everybody has to move out. So that's bad. You don't want that. There's also going to be a copy of the insurance, master policy insurance. You want that policy to basically be set up for building replacement. In condos, this is different than your own personal insurance policy. You're getting a homeowner's insurance policy, but it's more like a renter's policy. It's only going to cover the contents. It's not going to cover the whole building. Like if the building were to get flooded or burned down, God forbid, that master policy insurance that you're paying a portion of your condo dues every month for pays for that. The building will get rebuilt. The problem is you're still paying a mortgage payment and you've got to now find a place to live. So this is where your homeowner's insurance kicks in. This is about $300 a year. You can get it from your car insurance company, and usually they'll give you a multi-policy discount, and it covers your per diem as well as replacing your things, your clothing, and anything that you may have to replace as a result of being displaced out of the condo. Another thing you want to take a look at is meeting minutes. Review the current issues the community has been talking about, focused on. You want to look for any evidence of talk of special assessments that might have been discussed but not passed yet, because those won't show up and they're not required to disclose those, but you just want to make sure, in some cases, but you just want to make sure that if there's any talk of it in the meeting minutes, that you locate that and find out more about it. Fun fact, every condo, HOA, and community has a resident wild card or 2 or 5. It happens. They feed off each other. If you read the minutes carefully and you get to the section where you see questions from the members or the owners, you might be able to figure out who these wild cards are, and only you can honestly decide if you're going to be comfortable living in a community tolerating these people who may become your neighbors. So there may or may not be meeting minutes, and why? Well, boards are made up of volunteers, and sometimes the volunteers just writing up meeting minutes is not their priority, so they don't get those done in a timely fashion. So they may or may not be available. You'll have to see if they are and try to find out how comfortable you feel moving on if they're not available. Finally, let's close this up with Condo Doc Conclusions. So once you receive the package, you've got 3 to 5 days. It hardly seems like enough time, but make sure that you review everything. You can enlist help if you need to in the form of hiring an attorney. Once you ratify the contract to purchase, the seller can deliver this package at any time, so you should be prepared to drop everything to fully review it. And definitely, like I said, enlist help if you need. You can run them by an attorney. And finally, I know that this may seem absolutely grueling, but once you get into the condo, it's actually a good idea to be on the condo board, because then you're part of the decision-making body for the association and you're able to help protect your investment as well. I hope that was helpful. If you have more questions, you can let me know. Melissa Terzis, DC Real Estate Mama, and my contact info is coming next.